Shri Swaminarayan Bhagavan Ni Jai, Akshar Purushottam Maharaj Ni Jai, Guratitanand Swami Maharaj Ni Jai, Bhagat Ji Maharaj Ni Jai, Shastri Ji Maharaj Ni Jai, Yogi Ji Maharaj Ni Jai, Pramukh Swami Maharaj Ni Jai, Mahant Swami Maharaj Ni Jai. Good evening and welcome. I'm very excited on behalf of the BAPS Sri Swaminarayan Mandir here in Bartlett to welcome the DuPage County Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Committee. Thank you all for being with us here tonight. Dr. King is remembered as one of the most influential and important individuals in our modern history of America. He was a powerful advocate of nonviolence and civil disobedience. And the work that he chartered really has helped many individuals in today's society. It was Dr. King's dream of a more just and equitable society that continues to inspire people around the world today. Today we'll have a closer look at how one individual who thought different, acted different, and as a result of that was able to achieve a different level of success. Before we start tonight's program, I would like us all to take a moment of silence, as we all know that there has been many lives that have been lost in recent times. So to honor those individuals, let us all join in a moment of silence. We will actually begin this program with a Vedic prayer for peace. There is a Shanti Path, which is known as comes from one of the oldest scriptures in Hinduism, the Vedas. And these scriptures have this hymn known as the Shanti Path. And in this hymn, it asks for prayer. The prayer asks for peace amongst the cosmos, the universe, the ocean, the sky. It asks for prayer amongst the animals as well as all of mankind. And then finally, it asks for prayer of peace for our inner selves. So I'd like to request Mrugesh Bey to please come up and lead us in the Vedic Shanti Path.
We will recite a short prayer. The prayers are from our scripture, Sukla Yajurveda. Prayer is more than 10,000 years old, so it is called Shanti Path. If it is convenient for you, please join your hands, close your eyes as prayers are offered. Hari Om Madhyohu Shantirantariksha Gur Shanti Prithvi Shantirapah Shantirokhadayah Shanti Vanaspatayah Shantir Vishve Devaha Shantir Brahma Shanti Sarvagu Shanti Shantireva Shanti Shama Shantiredhi Jato Yatah Samihase Tato No Abhayam Guru Sannah Guru Prajapyo Bhayannah Pasubhyah Vishwani Deva Savitaduitani Parasuva Jatpadran Tanna Asuva Om Shanti 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 Sushantir Bhavatu Sarvarishta Shantir Bhavatu. Thank you.
When we start such gatherings, it is often very customary to perform what is known as the Deep Prakarya. The Deep translates to a divo, which is a light. And the symbolism behind this action is that as the light of the candle illuminates the room, we pray to God that the knowledge and information that has been shared here with us today will illuminate our hearts and our minds. So I'd like to request Mr. Dan Wagner and Pujapriya Swami to please come up and join in the Deep Prakarya ceremony. I would now like to request Mr. Dan Wagner to please come up and address the assembly with opening remarks.
Okay, everybody, so this is pretty cool. It is absolutely amazing to be here. I had the honor to go to Robbinsville, New Jersey, and my aunt, Swami, so bad, he was able to bless my rosary, which was just so amazing, and I think there'll be a video to show that as well. But I'm Catholic, but if anybody's Catholic Hindu, I'm getting to be that. So I really love this experience. And I can't thank Adele Barrett and all the leaders of this organization for being so warm and hospitable. And I know that another friend of mine who's a Catholic is like, boy, we need to be more like this. We just let everybody come in. This is so great. But so many people have said this is such a beautiful place. They've never been here before, and they just feel so welcome. And this is, I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear our wonderful Swami to be able to speak. So thank you again for coming. And I love Regina Brent, who's also the co-chair, and Reverend Wilson from Operation Push. Thank you for coming all the way with your husband and Sheba and all of you. I could go around the whole room and say thank you for being here, everybody. Denny Hiffman's back there. All right, thank you.
I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker, Pujya Priya Swami. Pujya Priya Swami was originally born and brought up, he was born in Toronto and was brought up in St. Louis, Missouri, and he has studied finance and economics from Southern Illinois University. In the year 2000, he was initiated as a Swami at the hands of Brahma Swami Maharaj during the opening ceremonies of actually this mandir right here. After his initiation, he went to India, and after studying Hinduism and other world religions and serving there, he was asked to come back to the US and serve in the Southeast region in the year 2006. After that, he led the services in the Southwest region, and since 2014, he is the head Swami of the Midwest region here in Chicago and the surrounding states. With further ado, I'd like to request Pujya Priya Swami to address the gathering.
Swami Narayana Sakshat Akshara Purushottama Sarvebhya Paramam Shanti Anandam Sukhamarapaye Om Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Om Shanti Shanti, Shanti. First and foremost, I would like to thank every one of you for coming out. It means a great deal amount for everyone to come to the BAPS Sri Swaminarayan Mandir, and especially to be able to have such a dialogue and discussion in today's times. And I would like to start off by also taking some time to reflect what's going on in today's society, and also request everyone that in their prayers also pray that there is peace very quickly in today's world, in today's society. And so today, as we reflect on the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I would like to start out by a different perspective of looking at Dr. King. There was a General O.R.N. Bradley in 1948 after India's independence, and his observation on India's struggle for independence. He had quoted, "We have too many men of science and too few men of God. We know more about war than we know about peace. We know more about killing than we know about living." And so, to reflect onto these words, we see that education, live in a time where emphasis put on knowledge. We live in a time where knowledge is very accessible, but that is also one of our biggest struggles. It's because having too much knowledge and too much information at our fingertips doesn't allow us to really reconcile, to understand what the reality or the truth is. And it is only when we reflect within ourselves and we reflect towards God that we can find the true values for humanity. And so today we all live in a society where it's very chaotic. But we're very fortunate to be able to reflect on two individuals today. One, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., another individual who Martin Luther King Jr. took inspiration from, Mahatma Gandhi. And so both of these individuals, they had a great amount of determination in struggle for human rights. Mahatma Gandhi was fighting against the British oppression in India. Martin Luther King Jr. fought for civil rights in America. Both of these individuals had a similar cause. They both came from different backgrounds. One a Christian, one a Hindu, one an African American, one an Indian. One was very meek, frail. Martin Luther King Jr. was very athletic. And so having two different individuals with two very different backgrounds. But what's remarkable about this story is how Martin Luther King Jr. was able to take inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi. And we see that a bridge between cultures, a bridge between religion, a bridge between individuals that may be different than you. Martin Luther King Jr. wore a suit, where Mahatma Gandhi wore a dhoti. And so we see that there's many differences, but yet both of these men found something in common. And so I think that's the calling for the day, that each of us is very different and very unique. And yet we need to find that common ground. And that common ground is the values of humanity. And so how and what can we learn from these two individuals? First is our world perspective, how we see the world. And so I would like to share two stories from the life of Mahatma Gandhi. And they both involve a train. And so once, Mahatma Gandhi, he was late, and he got to the train station, but he realized that his train was about to leave the platform. And so the train started moving, and so he hurried, and he rushed. And as he continued to rush and catch his train, in the whole process, he ended up losing one shoe. And so in the back of the last compartment, he looked into the tracks. And so what he did was he took off the other shoe and threw it onto the tracks. Another individual was looking at Mahatma Gandhi and says, "Would you do that?" So he says, "Well, I already lost one shoe. One shoe wasn't going to be good for me. So might as well give the other shoe. So whoever finds the pair, he will be able to use it." And so a very unique perspective. The other story of Mahatma Gandhi in the train was that he booked a first-class ticket. And at that time, in South Africa, an Indian could not sit in first class. And if someone else from a different race would come and they were asked to sit, you would have to leave and go to the second compartment. At that time, Mahatma Gandhi would purchase a first-class ticket, sit in first class. Individual came in and says, "Okay, why is this individual sitting in this compartment? I want him to leave." And so the person that was, overseeing the train, he asked Mahatma Gandhi to, vacate his seat. Mahatma Gandhi says, "Can I have a first-class ticket? I have all the right to be able to sit here." And he says, "Okay, don't you know that Indians aren't allowed to sit in business class? So regardless of having a first-class seat, you have to vacate these seats." And Mahatma Gandhi, he gave natural resistance to this request. And so he was not escorted, but he was thrown off that train. And he sat at the train station in the cold the whole evening. And he was contemplating what his next step should be. He went to very few Indian community members, talked to them about the story of what happened. And some of them, they looked at Mahatma Gandhi's naiveness and said that, you know, if you come here, if you want to earn a living, you want to make a better life for your family and so forth, you're going to have to put up with some of this stuff. And so, you know, we've all been able to accommodate to these little bits of, you know, resistance and disrespect and so forth. But in his heart, Mahatma Gandhi knew that this isn't the life that he wanted to give his future children. And so he said that something must be done. And so he got people together and he resisted. They had identification cards under the South African government. And so he organized a protest. And so one thing led to another. And then eventually he came back from South Africa to India to lead the struggle for independence for India. And so we see that Mahatma Gandhi had a very unique view of the world. One is to think about others and to stand up for one another. And that is what we see that we can learn from Mahatma Gandhi. And that was something that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. respected about Mahatma Gandhi. That is why Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. traveled to India to firsthand witness the culture of Mahatma Gandhi, to learn about the life of Mahatma Gandhi. And both individuals in their life, with these two unique viewpoints of the world, were able to lead a life with such determination. We see that Mahatma Gandhi, in his fight for independence for India, he organized a march from Sabarmati in Ahmedabad all the way to Gandhi. And the distance was about 250 miles. And you know, this march started off very slowly. And as they continued, they walked all the way to Gandhi. Gandhi was a place where there was salt. And the British had imposed a salt tax. And so, you know, the salt was for the Indians, and they were, you know, utilizing it and so forth, but they were paying this heavy burden tax. And so to protest it, Mahatma Gandhi led this march. And as they led this march all the way from Sabarmati to Gandhi, when they got to Gandhi, what occurred? It shows us what determination is as Mahatma Gandhi and his fellow men, they walked up. They had no weapons, had nothing in their hands, and they stood. And at that time, the British soldiers, they all had batons, and they smacked the knees of all these Indians. And as they fell to the ground, people moved them up, and the next 5 individuals stood up. Once again, they were whacked. They were brought to the side, the next 5 Indians. This type of beating, hostility continued. And eventually, one could only hate so much. And the resistance of Gandhi and his people led to some changes in people's viewpoints. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had read about this march. And what started out so organically in Selma, Alabama, and a fight for the voting rights, and taking a march to Montgomery, Alabama. The first march, there was a total of 3 different marches. The first march was really bloody, Bloody Sunday. And the second and the third march was then escorted by the government, and they were able to march all the way to Montgomery. But we know that event of Bloody Sunday, that resistance, and how it changed the mindset of every individual in the United States of America. How everyone felt that what it is to be a human, and to understand what oppression is. And understanding this and feeling this, there was change brought about. And so we see that 2 individuals from 2 different backgrounds were able to learn and have determination in their fight. But not only that, Martin Luther King Jr. and his ability to look out into the world and bridge differences. Someone from America in a very, successful atmosphere. He went to India and he tried to learn from Mahatma Gandhi. And when he went to India, some of the things that he learned from Mahatma Gandhi. I think one very key aspect that he writes about, or that is written about him in his biography, Let the Trumpet Sound by Stephen Diels, is that when Martin Luther King Jr. went to India and he learned about the life of Mahatma Gandhi, he realized that Mahatma Gandhi had dedicated a significant amount of his time for self-discipline, self-reflection, and Mahatma Gandhi took inspiration from that. And he said that I too must only spend 4 hours in my life sleeping, the rest of the time dedicated to the cause. He also vowed that once a week he would take out time for self-reflection. He says, if I am not able to meditate and self-reflect, not only am I going to do harm to myself, but I will do harm to the whole movement. I will not be able to serve my fellow men. And so we see that Martin Luther King was able to acquire this wisdom from Mahatma Gandhi. But one story from the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that resonates with me is his immense faith in God. And it is that faith in God that allowed for his leadership and fearlessness. And so one evening, Martin Luther King Jr. comes back home. During this day, he has received over 40 to 50 hate mail. Soon as he gets home, as we had a hard day, especially if it was very stressful, we want to kind of just get home, wind down, relax. Martin Luther King Jr. gets home and he receives a call, picks up the phone, and he says that, I hate you. I want to kill you. Why are you doing this? And the person on the other line just keeps on ranting and curses Martin Luther King Jr. After reading 40 to 50 hate mails and receiving a call like this when he gets home, he's frustrated, he puts the phone down. He's trying to deal with it. Another phone rings. He picks it up. Once again, the person's, enraged with hate. And he says, you know what, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. I want to torture your family. And he goes on and on. Now this kind of, breaks Martin Luther King Jr. down. Then, 1 hour later, a bottle rocket flies through the front window. And there's a burning cross thrown out in his front yard. And Martin Luther King Jr. breaks down. So much hate. He gets onto one knee and he prays to God. In his prayers to God, he says that, listen, I'm weak. I'm losing faith. I don't think I could tolerate as much. I don't think I could continue this struggle. And at that time, he had that inner calling from God. And Martin Luther King Jr., reflecting on that story, he says that when I had that inner calling from God, he says that I knew I had the strength to go on because I knew what I was doing was right. And I knew that God was on my side. And so he says that I became fearless. He didn't fear death. And what he knew very evidently, that his life would be taken for his struggles and for his fight for equal rights. It so happened. At the young age of 39, we lost a great soul in this country, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so we see that even though he lived a very short life, I think it is evident to say that it's very hard to live such a life to fill the shoes of Martin Luther King Jr. And so we see that Martin Luther King's faith led to his ability to lead such a strong movement. We see that Martin Luther King's Jr. ability to reach out and learn from different societies, different cultures, created many different bridges and so forth. And so I'm very honored to have every single one of you here at the Swaminarayan Mandir, and knowing that you're doing this great work to, re-incite the common values that all of us have, the values of humanity, the values of love, the values of determination, the values of mutual respect, and coming together and organizing such an event. Many times we kind of would feel that what do these events really? What's the fruits of these events? But just being in the same room with individuals from different backgrounds, different cultures, and just acquiring the vibes from one another, it brings into a very harmonious society. And so today, as we welcome you here at BAPS, I also want to kind of give a little bit more background of our community here at BAPS and our leadership and the faith that our leadership has. And so, Don Wagner had the ability to go and see the Mahamandir in Robbinsville, and I'm sure he'll talk about it a little bit more. But BAPS is a community here in Chicago. The organization BAPS, Bochasanwasi Akshar Purushottam Sanstha. That's what BAPS stands for. And so don't expect everyone to remember that. But a lot of times people are kind of wondering what it stands for. So the B for Bochasan is a village in India where this organization started from. Akshar and Purushottam is the philosophy behind our organization, God and his ideal devotee. And Sanstha is a Gujarati word for organization, and that's what BAPS stands for. And so BAPS was founded in 1921 by His Holiness Sastriji Maharaj in Bochasan, and now it is a worldwide organization. Pramukh Swami Maharaj, who had taken initiation by Sastriji Maharaj, and was the inspirer of this magnificent mandir here in Bartlett, Illinois, and also had the grand vision of building the Mahamandir in Robbinsville, New Jersey. Pramukh Swami Maharaj first came to the United States in 1974. And so he sowed the seeds for our organization here. And so from 1974 to 2023, so next year we'll be celebrating 50 years of BAPS. But in that time, we have over 110 centers throughout the United States of America, and we also have 5 traditional temples and 1 traditional Mahamandir in Robbinsville, New Jersey. And Pramukh Swami Maharaj's vision behind such these magnificent mandirs was that our community has that faith in God, and that faith will allow them to become ideal citizens and live a peaceful and happy life. And so it was very, foundational for him to build these mandirs. Pramukh Swami Maharaj was also invited in the year 2000 by Dr. Kofi Annan to the Millennium Peace Summit in the United Nations. And at that time, there was a bunch of faith leaders that had gathered. And His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj addressed the assembly at that point. And he shared a message, 3 points. One message was Paraspar Priti Prashavedha. Dialogue and love and affection amongst other organizations or religious organizations is the true form of religion. And behind this saying, Pramukh Swami Maharaj gave 3 messages. First, he reached out to all the faith leaders and expressed that it is very important and very vital for us to have a dialogue with one another. Faith leaders having dialogues with other faith leaders allows their communities to be able to respect other faiths. And so he said that's the first most important thing. The second thing is for faith leaders to have an open dialogue with their congregation, an honest dialogue. And that leads to more respect and more love. And third is for every single leader to have a dialogue with themselves. And so with this message, and he concluded by his life motto, "In the joy of others, lives our own." And so Pramukh Sai Maharaj was an inspiration for this message. But not only did Pramukh Sai Maharaj just give such a message, he embodied this message in the year 2001. In the month of September, there was a terrorist attack on the beloved Akshardham in Gandhi, Gujarat. At that time, 4 terrorists scaled the mandir compound walls and opened fire and ended up killing 37 devotees worshipping that day. And that whole evening led to, the army came in, the police came in, and eventually they were able to substitute the terrorist, and the threat was deviated by early morning. But it was one incident in our BAPS organization where we felt that an external animosity of hate towards us. There was no reason for this, but yet it did happen. It did occur. And what was so astonishing was the response that Pramukh Sai Maharaj gave. That month, I was in Saranpur with Pramukh Sai Maharaj. And the day after the attack occurred, we were in Saranpur, where it's a training center, a monastery for swamis that are learning. There was about 250 swamis there at the time. And Pramukh Sai Maharaj saw on all of their faces the distraught, the shock, the devastation. And immediately seeing this, Pramukh Sai Maharaj, after his breakfast, he called everyone close by. And he says, "Okay, let me explain to you what transpired the evening before." And so Pramukh Sai Maharaj in detail, talked about how the attack unfolded. And after sharing this, there was a kind of, environment where everyone just kind of heartfelt. And so one of the swamis said that, "Pramukh Sai Maharaj, let's offer a prayer to God that this type of event never occurs again in our organization." And in a split second, Pramukh Sai Maharaj looks to the swami and says, "Okay, why should we offer such a prayer? We should offer a prayer that this type of event never happens in any individual's life or any organization." At that point in time, it's all but natural to feel self-pity, to have everything focused on you, to be able to understand and fight just for your own particular rights and situations. But Pramukh Sai Maharaj, at that time, reflected on the greater world. Pramukh Sai Maharaj, a week later, he went to Akshardham Mandir where the terrorist attack happened. There he met all the people the families of all the people that lost their loved ones. He also, went to the compound of the Mandir complex, toured it, and then he asked where was the spot that those terrorists were killed. He went there and he showered flower petals, and he also prayed for the terrorists that, for whatever reason they had, whatever evil intent that they had, we also pray that their souls that are lost find a way into the light. Pramukh Sai Maharaj also says that we also pray that all evil is eradicated from this life. And so in such a time of pain, Pramukh Sai Maharaj being able to tolerate that pain and yet make an appeal for peace. We see that Pramukh Sai Maharaj, coined a phrase in India at that time. Whenever there was many communal riots or every, agitations in society, everyone would reflect on Akshardham response. Because Pramukh Sai Maharaj responded to violence with peace, responded to hate with love. And so Pramukh Sai Maharaj responds. But the story gets more inspirational is because you know, when something like this happens, many times we would want to become very complacent. Okay, I need to build walls, I need to protect myself, I'm scared to go out into society. Pramukh Sai Maharaj, this attack happened in 2001, and then Pramukh Sai Maharaj inspired to build another Akshardham in New Delhi. Now, New Delhi is also known for more of these, prone to having these terrorist attacks. But Pramukh Sai Maharaj says that, you know, if evil is going to continue with their threats and their ways, we must also propagate and promote peace at a greater level. And so to share what Indian values are, Indian culture is, he inspired the Akshardham in New Delhi. And so the Akshardham in New Delhi was inaugurated in the year 2005. President Bill Clinton had the privilege of visiting the Akshardham in Gandhi Akshardham. He had the privilege of meeting His Holiness Pramukh Sai Maharaj twice, once in Miami and once in Gandhi Akshardham. And in his meeting with Pramukh Sai Maharaj, he also had two reflections. One, that Pramukh Sai Maharaj was filled with integrity. And the second thing is that, you know, his compassion in his eyes was so intense that he felt that he has a heart where the whole world could live. And so two remarkable, you know, experiences that former President Bill Clinton had with His Holiness Pramukh Sai Maharaj. Pramukh Sai Maharaj then also envisioned the Akshardham here in provincial New Jersey to serve America, and also to, you know, it's a pride, it's a place of pride for us, and you know, for us to be able to celebrate our own faith. But it also serves as a very unique bridge to understanding one another's culture. And so one of the very unique things in this place of worship is that on the bottom plinth, there is, it's called the wisdom plinth, the Gnan Pitika. And so here in this, you know, Mahamandir that's dedicated to Bhagwan Swaminarayan and has the history of Hindu culture, it also encompasses all of the remarkable leaders across the world. And we're very honored to also have Martin Luther King Jr. There on that wisdom plinth with his quotation as well. And so we see that this vision of Pramukh Sai Maharaj was fulfilled by His Holiness Mahan Sai Maharaj. And so Mahan Sai Maharaj is the current spiritual leader of BAPS. Mahan Sai Maharaj is the age of 90, and Don Wagner had a very great experience of meeting His Holiness Mahan Sai Maharaj. But Mahan Sai Maharaj, I would like to share two things of Mahan Sai Maharaj, and then I would like to conclude. But Mahan Sai Maharaj is an individual that is very soft-spoken, very selective in his words, but yet his thoughts and prayers are very powerful. Every single morning, His Holiness Mahan Sai Maharaj, he wakes up at 3:45. When he wakes up, he sits in meditation for about 30 to 45 minutes. And in this meditation, he starts out his prayers. First, he starts out by praying for every single country around the globe and praying for their people. This was something very remarkable because we know that in politics, everyone has different viewpoints and there are different walls created and so forth. And so, you know, they asked Mahan Sai Maharaj that how can you pray for, you know, other countries that may have different interests or that isn't, you know, that are against, you know, you politically and so forth. And Mahan Sai Maharaj says, you know, the politics of a country are different and the hearts of people are different. And so when I pray, it's just not like on the physical globe, all of these boundaries of these countries, but I'm praying for every single soul on this planet that God graces them with happiness. And so he's able to just, you know, take a magical eraser and just erase all the borders of the world and pray for everyone. And so that is something very unique about Mahan Sai Maharaj. But not only that, I think one story that's very inspirational to me was when Mahant Swami Maharaj in the year 2017 had gone to Dar es Salaam, Africa, in Tanzania, in Africa. And when he was there, there was a seminar. And in this seminar, all these devotees had gathered and they were taking spiritual wisdom from His Holiness. And so when he left the seminar going back to his accommodations, there was this individual selling coconuts. And so, Mahant Swami Maharaj looked at him and so forth and, just showered his blessings onto him. And so one of the devotees that was escorting Mahant Swami Maharaj, commented that this individual comes every single morning to sell his coconuts, but no one here has bought any coconuts from this individual. And so Mahant Swami Maharaj just smiled. He went back into the seminar, and then after concluding his presentation for Mahant Swami Maharaj, he goes, I have one request. That there's been an individual that's been standing outside for the last 2 days wanting to sell coconuts. And so I request everyone sitting here in the audience to go out and buy at least one coconut from this individual. And so, after, Mahant Swami Maharaj's wish, and so everyone, was very enlightened and enjoyed to go out and buy a coconut and support this individual and so forth. And so they went outside, they bought the coconut and so forth. And, he was very elated. And so he gave one coconut and, cut it off and put the straw in and offered it to Mahant Swami Maharaj. And so Mahant Swami Maharaj also had it. But then the next day, the devotee talked about that individual's struggles, that he lived some 5 to 10 miles away, and he would walk, in the morning, early morning, he would harvest all these coconuts, he would carry them 10 miles, and he would sell them to, at this place where everyone would gather. And so Mahant Swami Maharaj, he called one devotee and goes, can you do one thing? Can you get a bicycle? I want to give to this individual a bicycle so that his commute becomes more easy and he's able to, make a living. And so Mahant Swami Maharaj had a bicycle bought for him and gave it to him. And so one individual, this individual in Tanzania, had nothing to do with Mahant Swami Maharaj. Different faiths. Purely he was there just to try to make a living. But when an individual looks past all of the different economical backgrounds, the difference of race, the difference of religion, and just looks at an individual struggling and wanting to help them, and goes out of their way. Mahant Swami Maharaj had no inclination or no, there was no benefit for him. But yet he just, felt so much in love with this one individual that was struggling that he invited everyone to take care of just one individual. And so we see that Mahant Swami Maharaj today, as he's praying for the whole world, he has taken action by just helping one individual. And so as we today reflect on the lives of Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, and we learned about His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj and His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj, I would like to conclude that, let us pray for the world, that there is peace in the world, but let us also take action by helping one single individual. Thank you.
Thank you once again to Puji Priya Seva Swami for his wonderful and insightful words. I'll once again remind a call to action that Swami gave at the very beginning of his talk, which was that within our diversity, we need to find something that we can find common ground on and come together. Swami also mentioned and talked about the Akshardham that has been constructed in Robbinsville, New Jersey. We'll have a quick look at a video that will provide a brief introduction, and then we'll have the opportunity to listen to several of community leaders that have recently visited and listen to what their experiences were.
I am delighted to stand here and honored by the invitation to represent, first of all, the AME Zion Church, a church founded in 1796 in New York City. But I'm also standing to represent the National Council of Churches, which represents 37 different denominations, over 100,000 congregations, and 30 million members around the United States of America. When I came in and I was asked to take off my shoes, I was reminded of Moses being commanded to take his shoes off, for you are standing on holy ground. We are truly on holy ground today. This monument that has been erected, the wonderful way in which the architects have given so much detail is awe-inspiring. We are standing on holy ground. Dr. Martin Luther King in 1958 was addressing an assembly at Purdue University, and he said, we've got to reach out one to the other and walk humbly with our God. You cannot walk these grounds in arrogance. You cannot walk these grounds without bowing your heads in humility. There was a debate between the sun and the cave. And the cave says, I don't believe that there's such a thing called light. And the sun says, well, I don't believe there's such a thing called darkness. And so they came up with an agreement. The sun said, I'll invite you up to where I live so you can see what light looks like. And then you invite me down to the cave so I can see darkness. Indeed, when the cave came above ground, he looked around and he said, light is real. All I see is the brightness of the sunshine. And so the sun says, well, now show me darkness. And the cave said, come with me down underground. And indeed, he went underground. But every place he looked, all he saw was light. He looked around the corner. He just saw light. And the cave said, look under that rock. It's very dark there. The sun says, no, all I see is light. The cave said, I don't know what happened. There was darkness everywhere until you showed up. But what makes this powerful most of all is the people who are a part of this great movement. Thank you for the amazing, amazing hospitality.
It's an honor to be here. What a joy it is to come to a place that presents so much light, so much joy. As I entered today, I thought of a time in which I was taking a fairly lengthy trip, 19 hours from New York to Singapore. But as I looked down in that night sky, all I saw was lights. I didn't see geography or borders or limitations. It is God that allows us to see light. As I entered this beautiful location and I looked at the spires and we were told of what they represent, the ornate architecture, but most importantly, the effort, the artistic design that draws the eyes to see light, I started to recognize that I was looking heavenward. I was doing exactly what a temple should do. It should turn me to God. It should help me see that. As I did, I felt at home. We must make our homes feel like heaven, so that heaven will feel like home. I celebrate this magnificent location. We in our own faith are temple building people. We believe in the sanctity of sacred spaces and sacred places. Today, I felt sacred places and sacred spaces. May we be united in seeking light together. May we always find each other as brothers and sisters. Again, I thank you. I express my love to you, my gratitude for you, and my hope and prayer that we will always be one, united in light, united as people of faith, and that we may give voice one to another as children of God.
My name is Ted Deutsch. I'm the CEO of the American Jewish Committee, and this is a unique opportunity for me to spend all of my time working on the things that I'm most passionate about. That includes building community and relations between the Jewish community and other communities, other ethnic groups, other religious groups. That's why I was so excited to have the opportunity to come here. Whatever your faith is, and whatever community you really consider to be your home, the opportunity to spend time here is important. One, because it's a window into another community, another important community that contributes so much here in not just in this area, but in the country and the world. The fact that so much of this work has been performed by thousands of volunteers, it's really incredible. It makes everything I've seen today that much more impressive, knowing what went into it from the community, what it represents to the community, and how important it will be for not just all these thousands of volunteers, but for everyone who has the privilege to come into the temple. This is exactly the kind of place that reminds people why it's important to be together, to share with one another, and one another's experiences and to learn from each other.
So hopefully that gave you a little bit of an insight as to what Sangha was talking about in terms of the Robbinsville Akshardham. I will now let you request Mr. Dan Wagner and Ms. Regina Brent to please come up and give closing remarks.
And guess what? We're all going to be eating food after this too, right? That's the one thing that this group likes, is to be able to experience the cultural digestive experiences of each community. And we're going to be doing that. But I wanted to turn the microphone over to Regina Brent. One of the coolest parts of working on this project, this is our 6th event, and one of the coolest projects of working on this event is working with Regina, and everyone that knows her knows how incredible she is and a faithful person. So without any further ado, Regina, would you join us on stage? She has to take off her shoes first. And your socks match too. You did it.
Good evening, everyone. Saving grace is that I take my shoes off at home. always like to respect the indoors of a sacred place. I'm so honored to be here tonight. So grateful, so appreciative for seeing all of you who've come together to take away time from your busy schedules. These days, I don't know if it's an epidemic or whatever, but everyone is overwhelmed, if not with family, with business, with work, with spiritual religions, and all other things that matter in life. And so I want to let you know how much I appreciate seeing you again tonight. Many of you have been to not one, but several of these events. And they're very important because they're going to be able to portray the work that we've done. Because walking through this beautiful edifice today, it dawned on me that this place is all about service. Service. Service to mankind. And that was exactly what Martin Luther King was all about, service. I just want to say that after these events, it's time to do the work. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention tonight the person that's really responsible for the 6 pillars that we came up with. I'd like for Dr. Reverend Jeanette Wilson to please stand. She is the one who put together 6 pillars, and we really appreciate your work. And Dr. Mosley is not here. She is another who came up with the 6 pillars. I'm sure you've received multiple emails from Dan Wagner. If not, that is phone calls or text or Instagram or whatever, but I think he would have put Faye Flynn, if any of you are old enough to know who Faye Flynn was, put him out of business, being a media person. Very astute man who has certainly blessed me coming into my life based on this Martin Luther King Unity Project. I also thank God for the fact that I know the family, and I've had the honor and the privilege to meet them and stay in touch with them. And you will have the privilege and the honor to see Mrs. King, Dr. King's sister-in-law, virtually on January 15th. But you will also be graced with the presence of a gentleman who was raised by the Ku Klux Klan, his grandfather and his father, and that's Mr. Bob Selmer. I spoke with him yesterday, and he is so excited to come to Chicago to testify for the fact of how many times he had been arrested with Dr. King after he had met him and had changed his life and his views about racism and the social ills of the injustices that were happening back then in those days. I said it's time to do the work after we have broke bread with one another over the months. And these 6 pillars consist of belonging and inclusion. The second one is community outreach. The third is education and learning. The other one is health equity. The other one is economic resource and job opportunities. And the last one is social impact programs that we need to create in order to have a safer, much more healthier community in which we live today, and that is in DuPage County. I also want to say that we all know Dr. King had a dream that he tried to realize and bring to fruition, like the gentleman said, within a matter of 39 years. He must have lived 3 or 4 different lifetimes in such a short time. And he told us that he may not get there with us, but he had been to the mountaintop and he had seen the milk and honey. But we all know that his life was taken. The bottom line is, the dream was not fulfilled completely, because we still have the same problems, the same ills of society, the same racism. But you're here tonight to make a difference. You're here tonight because you want to fulfill the dream that he had when it comes to education, when it comes to job opportunities for Black and brown people, for indigenous people, for people who are Caucasian people, who are not privileged also, who live in rural areas, who still don't have hot water, gas, light, and heat. So that by saying that Dr. King was for all the people and not just some of the people. He was for women's rights. He said things that pushed the envelope when it came to the wars. But he still had the heart and the tenacity to want to see us all come together at some time or another. And so I think that today you're making a brand new statement that you're willing to come together no matter what race, creed, or color, culture, religion. You're willing to do the work. And that's what this particular project will be all about. And so in my conclusion, I would like to say this parallel story to you to put something on your mind. And I think you can only agree because if you don't, you wouldn't be here if you didn't. One day a man said to God, God, I would like to know what heaven and hell are like. God showed the man 2 doors. Inside the first one, in the middle of the room, was a large round table with a large pot of vegetable stew. It smelled delicious, made the man's mouth water, but the people sitting around the table were thin and sickly. They appeared to be famished. They were holding spoons with very long handles, and each found it possible to reach into the pot of stew and take a spoonful, but because the handle was longer than their arms, they could not get the spoons back to their mouths. The man shuddered at the sight of their misery and suffering. God said, you have seen hell. Behind the second door, the room appeared exactly the same. There was the large round table with the large pot of wonderful vegetable stew that made the man's mouth water. The people had the same long-handled spoons, but they were well-nourished, well-plump, laughing and talking. The man said, I don't understand. God smiled. It is simple, he said. Love only requires one skill. These people learned early on to share and feed one another, while the greedy only think of themselves. Sometimes thinking solely of our personal gratification, we tend to forget our interdependence with everyone and everything around us, so much that we stop caring about them. But at this parable makes it clear. By doing so, not only don't we help others overcome their suffering, but we're also unconsciously harming ourselves, since we are all connected on a very deep level. With that being said, I'd like to say, join us on January 15th, 2024 at Drury Lane from 7 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. The tickets are $75. Tables are $750. There's a website available to you to purchase your table. And that way, you can all connect on a much deeper level to help someone else. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all for going extra time here. We're going to be real quick. So, what's next? All right, November 9th is going to be a Zoom call with Dr. Dockery and Dr. Huff from Benedictine University to talk about where do we go from here, chaos or community. We're talking about Dr. King's book. You're all going to get a calendar invite from them, And it's gonna be Zoom, so it's gonna be at your home. So it's gonna be a night at home, but it'll be a really good learning experience. Then on November 20th, you all get to meet Gwinnett Tilly Turner. She is our own DuPage County, lives in Wheaton. She received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Illinois Historical Society. She's written the definitive books on the Underground Railroad in DuPage County. She got to interview Harriet Tubman's last living relative and wrote this incredible children's book about slavery based on that story of Harriet Tubman. It's called Apple for Harriet. We're going to host a 90th birthday party for her at the DuPage Historical Museum. So you're all going to be invited to go to that. And then Matt LaFleur, where's Matt? Matt, the McCormick Foundation, if everybody's been in Cantini, Matt has the best job in the world. He's in charge of Cantini. He's going to host us for a holiday breakfast on December 14th. Everybody's going to be invited to go and have a wonderful breakfast at 7:30 in the morning till 9:30. And then he's opening up the mansion. The McCormick Mansion has been totally renovated for like $10 or $15 million. It's going to be gorgeous. We're going to be one of the first groups to be able to see this holiday decorations, and it's going to be really a special treat for us, so we appreciate that. We're going to learn about how Cantini's involved with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and Matt's going to be giving a speech about that. And then, of course, the Fiesta Resistance, January 15th. What do we do with the extra proceeds? Well, so Inland obviously put together a fund through the Community Foundation, and all the money that goes for all the profits goes into this fund that's going to help underserved communities in DuPage. So a table is $750, but it'd be really cool if you did a sponsorship of $1,000, which pays for a table, and then there's $2,500, $5,000, and $10,000. So if you know people, this is where we have Drury Lane. 1,200 seats are available. Let's fill Drury Lane and blow everybody's minds. But this is going to continue. We're going to have more and more events. We're working now with Leon Walker to talk about how Dr. King wanted to get rid of poverty, and he's a developer, African-American developer, Southside Chicago, downtown Chicago. He's going to be doing a talk to us. We're working out the details of that for possibly February. Little Friend Center of Autism and Ray Graham are going to host how Dr. King's vision is to make sure to keep special needs people, that they need to be equal to everybody else. We have the Asian community is going to host our event in May. And then the executive director of Morgan Breeden found out about what we're doing, and she's like, oh my God, this is so cool to have this group together, which went from 25, we hit 235 today. People just keep calling. And they're gonna host us to talk about urban forestry. And so it's just, this thing is growing and growing, and Lisa Flando, thank you for doing all your hard work to get everybody together, and we appreciate your help. So, I'm gonna stop talking because I'm hungry. I know you guys are too, and take it away.
Yeah.